My husband begged me to donate a kidney to his dying mother. You understand loss better than anyone, he said. Show her you're truly family. I agreed. 4 days after the surgery, Fred walked into my hospital room wearing his $1,000 suit. But he was not alone. Behind him stood a woman in a crimson dress that seemed to pulse with victory. And beside them, a nurse wheeled in his mother Abigail, her face a mask of cold satisfaction. Fred dropped a thick envelope onto my lap without meeting my eyes. Inside were divorce papers filed the morning of my surgery. He didn't know the most important thing, though. He didn't know my kidney never made it to his mother. And he had no idea that the woman who received it instead would become the architect of his complete destruction. Before we dive into this story, I want to say that it is an honor to share my journey with you. I hope these words reach someone who needs to hear them. I was abandoned at a Chicago fire station when I was 3 days old. Someone wrapped me in a yellow receiving blanket and left me in the safe haven drop box on a February morning so cold the firefighters said my lips were blue when they found me. My teenage mother never looked back, never left a note, never gave me a name. The state called me Baby Girl Doe for the first 6 weeks of my life, until a caseworker named Linda finally wrote Doris on my paperwork because she said, "Every child deserves a name someone chose with care." From that day on, my life was split in two. In one half, there were the 17 different addresses I memorized by the time I turned 18. Each one a temporary place that never quite became home. There were the foster mothers who meant well but had too many children to remember birthdays, and the ones who saw us as monthly checks. There were the social workers who changed every 6 months, flipping through my file like I was just another case number in an endless stack. In the other half, there was only the dream I carried like a talisman. That one day someone would choose me. Not because they were paid to, not because it was their job, but because they wanted to. After I aged out of the system at 18, I got a degree in social work from the University of Illinois Chicago. Not because it was practical, but because I couldn't let go of the children I saw in every emergency placement, every overcrowded group home. I worked 3 jobs to pay my way through. Overnight security at a hospital, weekend shifts at a call center, and mornings at a coffee shop near campus. Without family connections or anyone to co-sign a loan, even the cheapest studio apartment remained out of reach. I slept on friends' couches, in my car during winter break, once in the university library bathroom when I had nowhere else to go. But I made it. I graduated with my master's degree and landed a position at the Illinois Department of Children and Family Services. The work was brutal and the pay was barely enough to cover rent in a South Side studio with bars on the windows, but I got to spend my days doing something that mattered. I placed children in forever homes, sat with terrified kids in hospital waiting rooms, fought with bureaucrats who saw case files instead of human beings. I had a 98% successful placement rate because I remembered what it felt like to be the child waiting, hoping, praying that this time would be different. That fate would finally notice my hard work and give me what it had stolen from me as a baby. A family. Fred Mitchell entered my life 4 years ago. I was at a fundraising gala for foster youth aging out of the system, standing by the silent auction tables in a dress I'd borrowed from a colleague, feeling like an imposter among Chicago's wealthy philanthropists. He approached me during the cocktail hour, tall and confident in his tailored suit, with that specific air of someone who had never known want, never spent a night wondering where they'd sleep or if they were enough. "You're Doris Mitchell," he said, extending his hand. "I've heard about your work. They say you're the reason the placement success rate in Cook County has improved by 30% in the last 2 years." I shook his hand, startled that anyone had noticed. "I just do my job. The children do the hard part." He smiled at that, a warm smile that reached his eyes. "That's exactly what they told me you'd say. I'm Fred Mitchell. I'm here representing my firm's pro bono initiative. We're looking to expand our commitment to child welfare cases." We talked for 20 minutes about the gaps in the foster care system, about the children who fell through cracks wide enough to swallow lives. He listened like my words mattered, like I mattered, asking thoughtful questions and making notes in a leather-bound journal. When the dinner bell rang, he touched my elbow gently. "Would you be willing to meet for coffee? I'd love to learn more about how we could actually help, not just write checks and feel good about ourselves." He came to my office the following Tuesday with 2 lattes and a box of pastries from a French bakery I'd never been able to afford. Then he came back the next week. And the next. He'd show up during my lunch break with Thai food, with Italian, with Indian. Always something new, always insisting he wanted to understand my world. He met me at the courthouse when I had placement hearings. He waited in hospital lobbies while I sat with children whose parents had hurt them. He showed up again and again in a way no one ever had before. 3 months later, he took me to dinner at Alinea, a restaurant I had only ever seen featured in magazines, the kind of place where reservations required months of waiting and a menu without prices. I sat across from him at a table that probably cost more than my monthly rent, looking at 18 courses of food presented like art, unable to believe this was happening to me. A foster kid who used to steal protein bars from the caseworker's desk because she was so hungry. A woman who had built her entire life around helping others because no one had been there to help her. "Are you truly all alone?" he asked between courses, his hand covering mine on the white tablecloth. "No family at all?" "No one." The question hit me like a physical blow, the way it always did when someone asked directly. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to meet his eyes. I was abandoned as a newborn. 17 foster homes. No siblings I stayed in touch with, no family that wanted me. The only family I have is the one I create. The children I place, the colleagues who've become friends. Fred's eyes softened with something that looked like genuine compassion. He squeezed my hand tighter. "Then let me be your family," he whispered. "Let me give you what the world took away. You deserve to be chosen, Doris. You deserve to belong." 7 months later, he proposed with his grandmother's sapphire ring in Grant Park at sunset, the city skyline glowing behind him like a promise. I said yes through tears I couldn't stop, believing that finally, after 28 years of waiting, I had found my home. I had no idea I was about to become the most carefully selected victim in Fred Mitchell's perfectly executed con. We married 3 months after his proposal in a quiet courthouse ceremony. Fred said his mother Abigail was too traditional for a big wedding with a bride who had no family to invite. I swallowed the shame and told myself it didn't matter. I had Fred. That was enough. Except Abigail made sure I knew it wasn't. "Institutional upbringing shows," she'd say at Sunday dinners, watching me use the wrong fork. "No family breeding, but I suppose we can't expect miracles." I tried harder. Brought her flowers every week. Learned which silver to use. Attended her garden parties where she introduced me as Fred's charity case, while her friends smiled with pity in their eyes. I endured it all because Fred would hold me at night and whisper that I was doing great, that she'd come around, that family took time. Then the documents started coming home. "Just sign here, honey," Fred would say, sliding papers across our kitchen table after dinner. "Foster care funding applications. New group home approvals. You know this system better than anyone. Your signature carries weight." I signed everything. Stacks and stacks of paperwork for nonprofits I'd never heard of, placement facilities with names like Hope House and Safe Harbor. I trusted him completely. He was my husband, my family, the man who chose me when no one else ever had. I ignored the red flags. His sudden obsession with my medical records. The late-night case preparation meetings with Camille, the beautiful associate from his firm. His insistence I make him my healthcare proxy. The strange questions about organ donor registries that he'd ask casually like they meant nothing. Then one Sunday morning, Abigail collapsed at her country club brunch. The diagnosis came fast and brutal. End-stage kidney failure. And Fred turned to me with tears in his eyes and said the words that would destroy everything. "You're the only one who can save her." Fred found me in the hospital corridor outside Abigail's ICU room. His face was pale, his eyes red-rimmed, and when he saw me, he dropped to his knees right there on the cold tile floor. "She's dying," he choked out, grabbing my hands. "Kidney failure. Years of secret pill addiction the doctors just discovered. She has weeks, maybe days." My social worker instincts kicked in. "You're her son. You can donate." "I can't." He pulled a folder from his jacket, hands shaking. Lab results, genetic testing, pages of medical terminology. "I'm incompatible. Wrong blood type, wrong tissue markers. I was the first one tested. Do you think I would ask this of anyone else if I could do it myself?" The papers looked official. Stamped. Signed. I believed him because I wanted to. For 6 days, Fred didn't let up. He brought my favorite vanilla latte every morning. Stroked my hair while I cried about the impossibility of what he was asking. Whispered promises in the dark of our bedroom. "She'll finally accept you. You'll truly be our family. After the surgery, we'll take that honeymoon we never had. Paris, just you and me." He'd cry on my shoulder. I can't lose her, Doris. She's all I have. But it was Abigail who broke me. I visited her room on day 6 and she reached out with a trembling hand, her voice barely a whisper. Please, daughter. She'd never called me that before. My oath as a social worker echoed in my head. Protect the vulnerable, preserve life, do no harm. How could I live with myself if I let her die when I could save her? I'll do it, I whispered. I'll save your mother. Fred pulled me close, burying his face in my hair. Thank you, he breathed. I didn't see the cold satisfaction in his eyes, didn't feel the triumph in his grip. The next morning we went to sign the consent forms. And Fred made sure I signed something else too, something I'd never fully understand until it was far too late. The surgical coordinator's office was cramped and fluorescent bright. I signed form after form, my hand cramping, eyes blurring from exhaustion after 12 hours of pre-op testing. This one too, Fred said, sliding another page toward me. His voice was casual, almost bored. Standard emergency protocol. Gives the surgical team flexibility if there's a complication during the procedure. I signed it. I signed everything. I was so tired I could barely read the words. That evening, I visited Abigail's room one last time, hoping for warmth, for gratitude, for something that felt like family. Just do what you're here for, girl, she said without looking at me. The words cut deep, but I swallowed the hurt. After the surgery, everything changes, I told myself. She'll finally see me. That night, Fred held me close, whispering about Paris in springtime, about croissants in the Eiffel Tower, about how proud he was of me. Morning came too fast. Pre-op nurses inserted IVs, dressed me in surgical scrubs. Fred walked beside my gurney all the way to the operating room doors, squeezing my hand. You're an angel, Doris, he whispered, leaning down to kiss my forehead. When you wake up, everything will be different. I promise. The anesthesiologist began his countdown. 10, 8. The chemical taste flooded my mouth. 7, 6. The lights above merged into white fire. 5, 4. Darkness. When I woke 4 days later, everything was different. Gray walls. Peeling paint. A shared room with 3 other patients. One coughing violently, another moaning, a television blaring a game show. Tubes snaked from my side into a drainage bag. The pain was a living thing, clawing at my abdomen with every breath. Where's Fred? I asked every nurse who came in. Where's my husband? Where's the private suite he promised? They wouldn't meet my eyes. Just changed my bandages and left quickly. 4 days of this. 4 days of confusion and growing dread settling in my chest like ice. Then on day 4 the door finally opened. And what walked through destroyed everything I thought I knew about my life. Fred walked in wearing his $1,000 navy suit, crisp white shirt, power tie perfectly knotted. Behind him, a woman in a crimson dress that seemed to pulse with victory, a diamond ring blazing on her left hand. And then a nurse wheeled in, Abigail, alert now, eyes cold and sharp with satisfaction. Fred dropped a thick envelope onto my lap like garbage. My hands shook as I opened it. Divorce petition. Filed the morning of my surgery. This is the dissolution of our marriage, Fred said, his voice emotionless, like reading a contract. Clean, simple, efficient. I don't. Fred, what? Abigail's laugh was venomous. Did you honestly think my son married you for love? A foster kid with abandonment issues who'd sign anything for approval? You were a walking organ farm, dear. That's all you ever were. The room spun. The monitor beside my bed began screaming. The woman in red stepped forward, touching her stomach with a possessive hand. I'm Camille Chen, senior associate at Fred's firm. Actually, his fiancée since law school. You were temporary biological infrastructure. This baby, our baby, is the real heir to the Mitchell legacy. The kidney. I gasped through the pain. I gave Abigail my kidney. Fred's laugh was ice. And we're grateful. Here's $15,000 for your trouble. Sign the papers without contest and we part ways professionally. Fight it and my legal team will destroy what's left of your pathetic career. Abigail leaned forward in her wheelchair. The system eats girls like you alive, dear. You should know, you work in it. My blood pressure spiked, the monitor shrieking. Camille examined her manicure. Nothing personal. Just business. They turned to leave, Fred's hand on Camille's lower back. Fred, please, I sobbed, reaching out. I love you. He didn't look back. The door closed. I collapsed into myself, the beeping growing distant, my vision tunneling to black. A nurse rushed in calling for help. 20 minutes later, a different door opened. And the woman who walked through would change everything. 20 minutes later, the door opened again. A tall woman with silver hair swept into an elegant twist entered, flanked by Dr. Samuel Chin in surgical scrubs. Her presence commanded the room. "What the hell just happened in my hospital?" she demanded. "Who authorized tormenting a post-surgical patient?" She checked my monitors, studied my tear-streaked face, and ordered immediate cardiac monitoring. Then she pulled out her phone. "Hospital security? Judge Victoria Hartwell. Ban Frederick Mitchell, Camille Chin, and Abigail Mitchell from this recovery floor. Effective immediately. Judge." The word registered slowly through my shock. Once they were gone, she pulled a chair to my bedside. "Doris Mitchell. I know who you are. You placed my great-nephew in his forever home 3 years ago. You stayed late on a Friday to finalize paperwork so he wouldn't spend another night in temporary shelter. You have a 98% success rate because you actually give a damn." Dr. Chin spoke quietly. "Ms. Mitchell, your kidney didn't go to Abigail." The words made no sense. "What?" "Her transplant was cancelled in the final hour," he explained. "Emergency imaging revealed a brain aneurysm and advanced liver cirrhosis. Surgery would have killed her within hours." Judge Hartwell leaned forward. "That protocol clause your husband had you sign? It authorized emergency redirection. Your kidney went to the next compatible patient on the Federal Registry." Her voice cracked. "It went to me. You saved my life, Doris. I've been waiting 2 years for a match. But, you don't know me. I do now. And I've been investigating something that involves you. Fred Mitchell has been defrauding the foster care system. Your signature appears on dozens of documents approving funding for group homes that don't exist. Children were placed in facilities that never received the money. You were set up." The door opened again. A man in his late 30s with warm eyes and an FBI badge entered. "Ms. Mitchell, I'm Isaiah Washington, Financial Crimes. I've been building a case against your husband for 8 months." He opened a folder and I saw my signature on page after page after page. "With your cooperation," Isaiah said, his voice steady and certain, "we can destroy him." 3 months became my resurrection. Judge Hartwell taught me what I'd never learned in 17 foster homes. You can't save someone by setting yourself on fire. Real advocacy requires boundaries. Isaiah's investigation revealed the scope of Fred's crimes like peeling back layers of rot. $4.7 million stolen from the foster care system over 6 years. Shell companies in my name funneling money to offshore accounts. Forged signatures on placement documents for 143 children. 143 vulnerable kids placed in group homes that were actually vacant buildings while Fred pocketed the funding. County officials were on his payroll, Isaiah explained, spreading documents across Judge Hartwell's dining table. Nonprofit directors. Even a state senator. The asset discovery was almost funny. The Lincoln Park townhouse? Registered in my name. The River North commercial property? My 3 shell companies? All mine. Fred had built his empire on my identity, certain I'd never question him. But he'd made one fatal mistake. When he filed for divorce without claiming asset division, he legally forfeited everything. "The signatures are forged," the forensic analyst confirmed. "Electronic metadata shows he accessed her email accounts repeatedly to send fraudulent documents." Then Isaiah dropped the real bomb. "Camille Chin is actually married to Marcus Chin, senior partner at Fred's firm. The baby's his. Blood type analysis confirms it. And she's got tickets to Grand Cayman booked for next week. Without Fred." The Cook County Day reopened another case. Fred's father's death 15 years ago. Deleted emails about changing medication. Life insurance fraud. Murder. I testified before a sealed grand jury. DCFS cleared me and restored my license. Every day I grew stronger, harder, clearer. Finally, I looked at Judge Hartwell across her desk. "I want to face them," I said. "I want Abigail to know what her son really is before she dies." Judge Hartwell studied me for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Let's give them hell." Abigail's health collapsed fast. Hospice care. Days, maybe hours left. Fred became desperate. He sold his cars, begged me to reconsider, tried accessing Abigail's estate early through power of attorney. He was bleeding money, drowning, and it showed. Isaiah got legal wiretaps on Fred's phone. What we heard made my blood run cold. Once Mom's estate clears probate, we liquidate everything and disappear to the Caymans, Fred told Camille. The old woman's been a liability since she started asking questions about Dad's accident. Hell, she's the one who taught me to forge signatures on his insurance policies. She created the monster. Now she gets to watch it devour her. Camille's laugh was sharp. I've already got my exit plan, baby. Just not the one you're expecting. Marcus Chin, Camille's actual husband and Fred's senior partner, came to Isaiah with everything. Bank records, forged documents, text messages. The paternity test confirmed what we already knew. The baby was Marcus's, not Fred's. The DA reopened the murder investigation into Fred's father's death. New forensic evidence. Witness testimony. Deleted emails about changing his medication. Judge Hartwell sat across from me in her chambers. Once you do this, there's no going back. Abigail will die knowing her son is a monster. I thought of the 143 children. The vacant buildings. The forged signatures in my name. She created him, I said. She taught him to see people as disposable. She deserves to know what that created. We set the trap. Fred would visit Abigail with Camille tomorrow evening at 7. We'd be waiting. Isaiah handed me the recording device. Are you ready? I touched the scar on my side. I've been ready since the day he threw those divorce papers on my chest. The next evening I walked into Abigail's hospice room. Fred was already there, standing beside Camille. And he had no idea what was about to hit him. Fred walked into Abigail's hospice suite with Camille on his arm, both wearing confident smiles. They stopped dead when they saw me standing there with Isaiah, Judge Hartwell, and 2 FBI agents. What is this? Fred demanded. Isaiah pressed play on the recording. Fred's voice filled the room. Once Mom's estate clears probate, we liquidate everything and disappear to the Caymans. The old woman's been a liability since she started asking questions about Dad's accident. She's the one who taught me to forge signatures on his insurance policies. Fred's face drained of color. I stepped forward. Foster care fraud. $4.7 million stolen from vulnerable children. 143 kids placed in vacant buildings while you pocketed the funding. Isaiah laid out the evidence. Forged signatures, shell companies, bank records. And Camille, I continued, already has tickets to Grand Cayman. Without you. She's married to Marcus Chin. The baby's his, not yours. Camille shrieked, lunging at Fred. You promised me $5 million. Fred backhanded her across the face. You stupid bitch, you were just the diversion. In her bed, Abigail heard everything. Her eyes widened in horror as the recording played on. She's the one who taught me to forge signatures. She reached a trembling hand toward me. He killed Thomas, my husband. What did I raise? I stood over her bed, my voice like winter. You called me institutional trash. You encouraged him to use me because you thought foster kids were disposable. Every child he hurt, you're complicit. You knew he married me for my kidney and you smiled. This is what you created, Abigail. Look at your legacy. The heart monitor flatlined. The high-pitched tone filled the room. Dr. Chin called time of death. Cardiac arrest triggered by extreme psychological shock. Fred collapsed, sobbing. FBI agents pulled him to his feet, handcuffs clicking shut. Frederick Mitchell, you're under arrest for fraud, conspiracy, and second-degree murder. Camille screamed about immunity deals as they cuffed her separately. Isaiah's hand touched my shoulder. It's over. I walked out beside Judge Hartwell and I didn't look back. But the story wasn't over yet. 6 months later, I stood in a federal courtroom and watched Fred's world collapse. Guilty on all counts. Fraud. Conspiracy. Money laundering. Second-degree murder for his father's death. 25 years federal prison. Full restitution ordered. Camille was disbarred and sentenced to 8 years. Marcus got immunity for cooperation. I legally owned everything. The Lincoln Park townhouse, the River North property, all of it. I used Fred's blood money to create the Second Chances Foster Foundation, providing real housing and support for youth aging out of the system. Judge Hartwell served as board chair. DCFS promoted me to Director of Child Welfare Reform. The system that had failed me was changing, piece by piece. On a gray October afternoon, I visited the memorial garden where foster children who died in the system are remembered. I placed flowers, whispered their names, told them about the new policies being implemented. My hand touched the scar on my side. Once a symbol of exploitation. Now proof I survived. I used to think this scar meant I was naive, I said softly. Now I know it means I survived something designed to destroy me. Mind if I join you? Isaiah stood on the path with 2 coffees in hand. He'd been patient these months, no pressure, just present. Fred's appeals were denied last week, he said, handing me a cup. It's really over. We stood together in comfortable silence. I never thanked you properly, I said. For believing me. You did the fighting. I just provided the weapons. He turned to face me, warmth in his eyes. Doris, I know you're still healing. But when you're ready, I'd really like to take you to dinner. Not as an investigator. Just as someone who thinks you're remarkable. I smiled. My first real smile in months. I know this great Ethiopian place on the south side. Perfect. How's Saturday? We walked down the memorial garden path together, the Chicago skyline glowing gold in the sunset. My hand brushed the scar through my shirt. Not shame. Proof. Fred thought he could take a piece of me and leave me empty. But that piece went to Judge Hartwell, who gave me back something more valuable. Power. Real power. I'm still a social worker. I still fight for forgotten children. But now I fight with teeth. And for the first time since I was abandoned as a baby, I know exactly where I belong.